Processed foods can get a bad rap, but did you know that some are healthy? When foods are washed, bagged, canned, or boxed, they're all considered processed, but still have lots of vitamins and minerals. Let's take a look at 3 surprisingly healthy processed foods that are actually good for you. Fortified cereals, which have vitamins and minerals added, can be a great choice. Look for those that are low in sugar, less than 6 grams, with 3 grams of fiber or more. And some give you a whole day's worth of certain foods can get a bad rap. But did you know that some are healthy? When foods are washed, bagged, canned, or boxed, they're all considered processed, but still have lots of vitamins and minerals. Let's take a look at 3 surprisingly healthy processed foods that are actually good for you. Fortified cereals, which have vitamins and minerals added, can be a great choice. Look for those that are low in sugar, less than 6 grams, with 3 grams of fiber or more. And some give you a whole day's worth of certain vitamins and minerals, like B12 and niacin. Some processed plant proteins are super healthy, like soy-based veggie burgers or veggie chicken. Soy is a high-quality protein and replaces animal products in milk, burgers, and veggie chicken strips. If you're watching your salt intake, make sure to read the label because these products can have a little or a lot. Canned beans are full of vitamins, protein, and fiber. They're ready to use in any recipe from soups and stews to quesadillas. Adding these nutrient powerhouses to your diet couldn't be easier. Look for reduced salt versions, or you can cut down on sodium by rinsing them first. And remember, processed doesn't necessarily mean bad. It can be more convenient, and that's good if it means you're going to eat healthier. For more health tips, go to aarp.org/health.
Hello, my name is Sonia Gibbons-Reed, and I am the State and Community Engagement Analyst for AARP Illinois. AARP, a nonprofit, nonpartisan member organization, has been working to promote the health and well-being of older Americans for more than 60 years. AARP is proud to represent all those who are 50 plus in Illinois and our 1.7 million members, and we thank you for the opportunity to be your wise friend and fierce defender. Our mission is to enhance the quality of life for all as we age, leading positive social change and delivering value to members through advocacy, service, and information. Did you know an overall healthy diet is best, but a few foods stand out for their brain health benefits? These standouts, plus a few boosters, can keep you healthy as nutritional needs change with age. Berries, dark green leafy vegetables, seafood, nuts and seeds, cottage cheese, beans, water, and avocados. We are hopeful today's cooking demonstration is helpful in your cooking journey. Please enjoy today's cooking class, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
Hey, welcome back to the Cookery for day 2. I'm Chef Joe. With me here is Chef Amanda. What are we making today for? Chef?
Oh my gosh, day 2 has us working with butternut squash, my absolute favorite squash, which we're going to stuff into a mushroom. So a little bit different of a spin on a holiday stuffed mushroom that really embraces the season of fall. We're going to make a dill Havarti and pecan quesadilla. And what's our recipe? Oh, we need something to dip that quesadilla in. So rather than going with a traditional salsa, which is only good in the summer, we're going to make a pear preserved jam.
Yum.
Yeah.
Yum.
So again, we've got a lot of great things here that can be made for a nice stick to the rib kind of lunch that you can share with a loved one at home, or maybe out on the go, take a nice little picnic lunch along with you with these things inside, or even a nice little jar of the pear jam, which is going to be great for the holiday season. So without further ado, I think Joe's going to show you how to break down this squash.
Let's get started. So we have our butternut squash here. Now our recipe is needing 6 ounces of butternut squash. So our whole one here is going to be a lot more than that. So a couple tips when we're not working with it. We're going to use this bottom bulb part. It has all the seeds, so I'll show you guys how we break that down. But I'm not going to need this top half of our squash, and this is all good fruit to eat inside. So there's no seeds. You don't have to clean anything with the top. Just peel it and break it down. If you know that you don't have to use your whole squash, though, I recommend leaving this peel on until you're going to use it. Especially if you're keeping it whole, it won't be any harder to peel after you cut it in half there. That way, it's just going to stop the air from getting onto the actual flesh of the squash. Keeps it a little more protected if we still have that peel on. But now we're going to get to it and start peeling. Butternut squash is going to be one of the harder things you peel, so you really just got to give it a little bit of a oomph with your peeler. But then, like I said, I'm just going to do half of it. So I'm starting at about the halfway point and just peeling across.
Now, if you were going to use the whole squash, you could just pop that baby in the microwave.
Oh, yeah.
It'll soften it up a little bit and make it a little bit easier to peel. So I guess if you're making for your holiday family meal, maybe double this recipe.
Yep.
Double the amount of mushrooms, and then you're going to use up all of your squash. Or use it for another application.
And when you microwave it like that, it's not going to actually cook the flesh of the squash very much at all. So the rest of the recipe, you won't have to alter at all. You'll just do that to help make your peeling process a little bit easier.
Absolutely.
Then we'll go through, clear my board of all our little peels here. The peels are compostable. Not a whole lot else you'll do with them, though. So if you don't have a compost, you can just toss these in the garbage.
You know what I really love about squash, like butternut squash, even if it's not perfectly right, it gets cooked in any application. So it's going to ripen it as it cooks and bring that kind of squashy, sweet flavor that we love to like.
Another use we do pumpkin chilies here a lot. We are in Morton, so it's the pumpkin capital of the world.
Woohoo!
And butternut squash is a great thing if you don't have a whole pumpkin that you're working with and you're just going to use canned pumpkin like we're using in a soup later on in the week. But you can add in diced butternut squash. It has a really similar flavor to pumpkin, and it's something where you can have bits that you can still bite in and chew and feel substantial with your soup, even if you're only using that pureed pumpkin. Now we're going to go in, and this bulb right here at the bottom is going to have all of our seeds. So I'm just taking a spoon and peeling it around, getting all those out. Now you can save your seeds if you want. If you guys like pepitas are just pumpkin seeds. Squash seeds work the exact same way. So I'm just cleaning them out. Chef Amanda here behind me is grabbing a tray where we already have some pumpkin seeds that we did the exact same thing to. All you do is after you get them out, they have all this fiber and guts attached to them, like when you're carving pumpkins. Exact same thing. You'll want to just take them, put them in a strainer, and put it under some running water. That water is going to pop all those seeds out for you, and then you can let them dry for a few days. You can season them up, a little bit of oil, salt, pepper, maybe some other funky spices if you're feeling fun, and then stick them in the oven just to get toasted.
For today, we're just going to come.
We already have something today.
Yep.
And then I'm going to break it down. So any kind of vegetable we're going to break down into a dice. I want to get some planks out of it first. Butternut squash is round though, so our key is we want a flat surface so it's not rolling around for us. First thing I'm going to do, just take an end off. That makes a really flat level surface for me so I can set it down, go down into my planks, and then cut it into a dice. Now we're just sauteing these up in a pan until they get nice and soft, and then we're going to mash them. So we just want them basically the same size so they cook the same speed, but they don't need to be uniform for our eyes' sake. We're not going to see them as full pieces, so if they're a little bit misshapen, that's totally fine. Which is a great use to use the bottom part of a butternut squash for because they do have the funky shapes. It's going to be kind of hard to get them all perfectly uniform. But I'm going to break these down, get them going in our pan. Chef Amanda is going to start working on some pear jam for us so we can see that.
This is your pan and your olive oil for your squash. Go right into dough.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
We're going to go ahead and heat the pan up a little bit for them. That way we get that delicious caramelization on our vegetables as soon as it hits the pan. All right. I'm also going to start the pear preserves because they both take a little bit of time to cook. So we may as well get the fruits in there, get them softening, and get them working our way through the recipe. So this just starts with 4 pears, which I have already peeled 3 of them. And I'm working through my 3rd one. I do like to remove the pears when I do an apple butter or pear jam, just so that they don't separate and they're kind of awkward floating around in there. A little slippery. Okay, once I have those broken down, I'm just going to use my knife to process through them. Ooh.
From that situation. And then we're sauteing these, like I was saying, until they get nice and soft. So you just want to stir them every once in a while, let them sit on one side for a little while. Even though we are going to mash them, you still will get the flavor from that caramelization when you get them nice to get color on one side. Even though it's mashing, that flavor still got to go somewhere, and it'll go right into our goat cheese mix.
Now, is it important to keep the squash the same size? I noticed that you're cutting very uniform pieces.
The same general size is going to be key for you. Because you don't want one to be ready to mush and one to be really hard. You're going to bite into a hard chunk of squash. Now, if some of the end pieces get a little bit smaller than most of them, that's going to be okay. A few smaller pieces are less of a big deal than a few oversized pieces.
So now I've just broken down my pears by cutting just all 4 sides off so that I also get some nice even pieces so that everything cooks evenly. And now I'm just cutting them into planks, which will then become cubes. And then these are going to go into my little sauce pot, and they're just going to cook with some sugar and some water.
A lot of great practice for your knife skills today. Getting lots of dices. And like we said, if you're working with any kind of fruit, any kind of vegetable, your same basic dice motions are going to be the same. You're going to work them down into some planks, cut them down into your long sticks, and then from there, cut them down into your dice. Now that I have my butternut squash in my pan, I'm going to get my other ingredients that are going in there ready. So I have my butter all ready to go. I have my wine all ready to go. And then I have my sage and my chives. So sage, we like to get as much sage as possible. And I'm going to pick the leaves off here. Now, whenever you're doing something with a big leaf shape, the easiest way to get it down to a size is do a chiffonade cut first. Chiffonade is just a really fancy way of saying large, long ribbons. And so I'm going to take my leaves and layer them together here. Now, you'll do this traditionally with basil. You'll do it with spinach a lot. You'll do it with mint. For sage, it's not really as common because you have narrower leaves, but it is still the most convenient way to get all of these cut at the same time.
That smells awesome.
It
makes
does.
me want Thanksgiving.
And I haven't even started cutting it yet.
Oh,
and I'm going to roll it up just kind of as much as I can here. Run my knife through and just do nice thin cuts.
Meanwhile, I just finished dicing up my pears, and I now have them into my little sauce pot with the sugar. And I'm going to add in my half cup of water. A cup of sugar, half cup of water, 4 pears. I think you could use any pear here. We're just using a traditional Bartlett, but Asian pears are delicious. You could use that here. Red pears. Whoop. The squash do love to jump out of the pan, don't they?
They sure do. I'd want to jump out of the pan if I was in there too, though, so I can't blame them.
Butternut squash is my favorite squash to work with for sure. It's so versatile.
It really is.
Here, we do a lot of classes, and we put it in every class from Mexican to Italian. It's great inside of a pasta. It's great with black beans and spiced up with a little bit of cumin.
And it's very good for you. It's vitamin A is the vitamin you're going to get out of most of your orange veggies, your carrots, your sweet potatoes, your butternut squash. For most of it, that's one of those vitamins we don't get as much in our natural foods. I don't eat a ton of carrots every day. I don't eat sweet potatoes every day. Butternut squash, though, we're starting to eat more of. It's a great way to keep your vitamins up.
And your night vision good.
Mm-hmm. Getting some caramelization on some of these sides of squash, exactly what we want.
My pears also require a little bit of lemon juice. So I have a fresh lemon, which I have just washed the outside of. I'm giving it a good roll on my cutting board to where I can feel the juices kind of softening inside. Ooh, you know what? We should take the zest too.
That's a good call there.
I find a lot of recipes don't have the zest, but I usually use it either way. It just gives a nice citrus pop. You can also zest your fruit, even if you're not going to use it today, and stick the zest in your freezer. That way, when you want to make a lemon chiffon cake or something like that, you can just pull out a little bit of extra lemon. Or maybe you want to add it to your cream cheese icing for a lemon cream cheese icing.
Most places you're going to add some lemon juice, you can add lemon zest right in there with it. So if you have a recipe that you're making, they only call for the juice of the lemons, zest it. Throw some of the zest in there with it. It's not going to increase any of the tartness in it. It's just going to bring some of that natural lemon flavor.
For about a tablespoon. About right.
One of these juicers you can find at Walmart, Amazon, Kroger. Change your life, juice lemons.
Definitely more convenient. All right. The pear jam is underway.
And our squash is getting close.
Right.
All right.
That looks delicious.
Sure does. So we're going to go ahead and go in. I'm going to throw in my butter into here. Once that gets all melty, we are going to add in our white wine and our herbs. That's going to get it to a point where our butternut squash is cooked enough where I can go in and mash it. We're going to toss it over our goat cheese here with our salt and pepper already thrown in with the goat cheese. Mix it all up together. And then like your recipe says, do not eat all of the filling. Give it a taste. Make sure it tastes good enough to stuff in your mushrooms, and then save the rest for the mushrooms.
Let's talk about the mushrooms for a second. I bought some button mushrooms, and I also bought some panini mushrooms, just because I think it's fun to have a variety of different kinds of mushrooms. I like the different colors as well. It seems more inviting to me. We're not going to wash our mushrooms. We just like to use a technique here where we simply get a damp towel, wash off any of the dirt that might be residing on the mushroom cap. And then we're just going to wiggle out that stem. We do like to save these here and make like a mushroom stock out of it or a veggie broth. Especially at soup season. So we're definitely going to use that. I got a little of my stem stuck down in there, so I'm just going to use my knife to get it out. And then I have just a 9x13 glass pan here that we're going to bake the mushrooms in. And I just put a little butter in the bottom. That could be olive oil. That could be any kind of oil that you want, really, or fat to go in the bottom. Just a little bit. Ooh, Joe, what do you got going on?
So that bubbling you guys just heard, that was our white wine going into our butternut squash here.
So that's our deglazing liquid, right? Okay.
So this wine was alcoholic, but it does not have to be alcoholic, and it's still going to be a deglazing liquor for you. So anything that I'm going to use to deglaze those brown stuck-on bits, the fond like we learned yesterday, that's going to be my deglazing liquor. So even if I use water instead, that water is still the deglazing liquor.
So our goal here is to use that liquor to eat up all the brown bits on the bottom of the pan.
Yep. And then what's great about the white wine is most of that's going to evaporate off. Alcohol evaporates really fast, and there's not all that much liquid left in it. So we're not adding any extra liquid into this butternut squash. We're just adding the white wine flavor and taking off all those bits off the bottom to add those in. Once the wine is mostly evaporated off, I'm going to wash, give it one last toss around, and then it's going in there with my goat cheese.
Now we're using a really traditional Thanksgiving and holiday herb with the sage, but let's say we didn't have that on hand. Rosemary would be delightful in here. Parsley would be great in here. So any of those really French type herbs, I think, are going to fit well that are good for the fall season here. of the next steps in your recipe is to melt some butter. Oh, thanks. To melt some butter in the microwave.
You just
Here we go. So instead of doing it in the microwave, we're just going to do it in the pan because we're right up here at the stove. But either way, if you want to melt it into the microwave, you can. Then mix in your breadcrumbs, toss those around, and this is going to become that crunchy breading for the top of our mushrooms. What am I thinking of right now? Rice Krispie treats, apparently.
I mean, toasted breadcrumbs on the top of a marshmallow would also taste good, but it's going to be better on this mushroom.
I think we better stick to that.
And so now I'm just going in here with just a masher, and we're getting it all mashed. So work on the sides with your squash a little bit, get those mashed together, and then mix in your cheese.
Now, Joe, heaven forbid, what if somebody is silly and they hate goat cheese?
Oh, wow.
What should we do? What could go in here instead?
So this would you could leave it without goat cheese. Just squash, do your butternut squash, and it would be fine. You can do cream cheese if you still wanted some cheese and get creamy in there.
Parmesan.
Parmesan would do great.
Cheese.
You can do Parmesan with both. And good. And then here we go. And now some of those little pieces of squash, if they're still got a little bit of shape to them, I'm not super concerned going in here and making it smooth. They're not hard, they're not undercooked. They just still have a little bit of that shape. So we'll be able to feel it when we go in to chew. Give our mouths something else to feel instead of just the smooth.
A little texture.
A little contrast in there.
Yeah,
Make it a lot better for you.
Our pears are coming along nicely. They're boiling. I am doing it without the lid on. That way I can keep an eye on it and nothing bubbles over or caramelizes in there. I can see them starting to get a little bit of color to them. Our butter has now melted. I'm going to just toss in our breadcrumbs real quick. Kind of roll them all around.
While she's finishing off our breadcrumbs, I'm just stuffing our mushrooms. So I'm just getting a spoon, filling them up, doing a little bit of a overhang, round them off to look pretty. And depending on the size of the mushroom, you could need a little more, a little less. Depending on your mushroom, I say your filling range is anywhere from a teaspoon to a tablespoon for each mushroom.
Oh, those look amazing. And I'm just going to come in with the buttered breadcrumbs. Put a little bit on top. If you're exercising a gluten-free diet, no biggie. Get some gluten-free bread, toast it out, make your own breadcrumbs. But you can even find the gluten-free panko at Kroger now.
Which is really good. You can barely tell the difference from regular panko.
So overall, this is a pretty healthy dish.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Goat cheese, they say, is healthier than traditional cow's milk cheese. So we're cutting some calories there.
Even
mushrooms are very good.
Even the unhealthy parts of this are still pretty healthy.
Yeah.
Havarti isn't a terrible cheese for you.
Very low fat.
And like we said, it's mostly butternut squash. So the mushrooms very healthy.
I mean, traditionally, we'd put cream cheese and bacon in these.
Oh, yeah. And they're amazing.
They are amazing. But it's nice to have something a little different than sausage.
Especially for the fall season.
Yeah.
Cream cheese and bacon is a summer thing for me. I always think of cookouts and picnics. When you start going any kind of squash, I think fall going into winter.
I agree.
Which is great because I've just been made aware that it's supposed to snow tonight. So I'm glad we're getting some squash into it before it starts.
For sure. So pull your herbs inside tonight, folks. And all of the plants that are worth keeping until the next season. These look dynamite. I'm so excited.
Me too. Not sure what you guys are gonna eat for lunch, but I'm gonna eat this pan of mushrooms.
I'd be impressed if you could put away like 24 mushrooms.
Oh,
Joe.
you know me. I could totally.
I know you
avoid
do it just to prove me.
I'd enjoy it too. The last 6 mushrooms or so, maybe not as much.
These breadcrumbs, just with a little nice crunch on top, are going to be just the perfect addition. You could even do a little dust of Parmesan cheese right over the top of these if you wanted. That would be really.
And you can do them in the microwave, like she was saying. It's absolutely going to do the same job for you. But doing them in the pan for a little bit first is just already starting to get those breadcrumbs crisped up. It's going to make them that much crispier for our end game. This does go much faster if you have a helper when you're filling these and topping them. But it's definitely worth it. Even if you're doing them by yourself and have to fill and top them all, try 1 mushroom and it's going to be worth it.
Here's your last one. I'm going to stir my pears.
Thank you much.
Oh, this is looking pretty good. The pears are almost soft, but we're not quite there yet. We want them to be pretty soft, like if you were poking a potato. That way we don't have any crunchy chunks in our jam. All right, this looks pretty good. I'm going to turn it down low. And next we're going to work on our quesadilla. I think we'll be just fine to use the same exact pan that we did our butternut squash in. I already got a lot of nice oil going on in it, so I think we can use that and even skip the butter or whatever you would want to grill your quesadilla with.
Layers of flavor, folks.
I have some dill Havarti cheese here. I think this particular block came from Aldi's, but I know you can get it at Kroger's as well. I think most places that sell a Havarti, usually they have a dill version because it's very popular to have Havarti be dill flavored. There is, of course, also regular flavor if you're not into the dill, but I like that little fresh herb pop that's going to be inside of this quesadilla. So pecans toasting first, Joe?
So I just have a little, this is a wok, just a non-stick little pan. You can use any kind of pan you have at home and it's going to do the same job. You can even do them in the oven. You set your oven to about 400 degrees, put them on a sheet pan, stick them in there. You want to check them every 3 or 4 minutes or so. If you're only doing a half a cup of pecans like our recipe calls for, it's going to go pretty quick and they can get burnt for you pretty fast. But if we're just doing it on a pan, we're going to get it to about medium-high heat, and we're going to toss them in here. You don't have to worry about letting the pan get super hot like you do with meat. It's gentle warming up is going to be totally fine. After it starts to get hotter, though, I'm going to stir around these nuts pretty consistently. They burn up pretty fast, and we just want them toasted. Your nose is actually going to be the best tool for you to tell when they're done. Nuts, when they get toasted, are going to start smelling really nutty and toasty and warm. It's going to smell like those nut carts that you see at the mall with all the toasted candy pecans. Exactly like that.
You can't pass by them without buying that.
No, you can't. That's how they know how to get you. There's a little fan in the back just blowing all the smells to you.
Now we have whole pecans. Are we going to give those a little rough chopping?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So the reason I'm not chopping them first is when you start to chop your nuts, you're not going to get them super uniform. You're going to have some size, about a quarter of a nut. You're going to have some really small pieces. If I toasted them after they were already broken apart, some of them are going to get really toasty and done before the other ones are toasted at all. And then you'll have some pieces when we're finished that are a little burnt. And you don't want anybody to get one of those burnt tastes. So while they're all as full as they can be, I'm going to give them a toast. Then I'll take them out, give them a rough chop, and they're ready to go into our quesadilla. If you got one of the bags of pecans that is already chopped, no worries. They're usually pretty consistently chopped. So you can still grab those, toast them off. Just keep in mind, if they're chopped beforehand, they are going to take a lot less time to finish off toast.
I'm over
Pear
here.
jam
I've got
looking
a
great.
stick blender, or an immersion blender, some might call it. And these are great. Just kind of unhook at the base. And they're awesome because you can puree any soup or item right there within the pan, as long as you have a metal pan. I'm going to test my pears, make sure they're nice and soft. Sometimes the best way to know is to just eat one. So I'm going to find the biggest one, tap it in my mouth. It's looking pretty good. Very hot. Yep. Very good. So, really bright, really lemony, and then the pear flavor just comes through. This is one fruit that I think really benefits from cooking it, as a pear is in comparison to eating it raw. While they are delicious raw, they have to be perfectly in season to be good and edible in a raw state. This is just delicious. So now I'm just gonna blend up just slightly. Might wait for that to cool just a bit before I do that. What do we got going on over here?
Our pecans are finished up.
And I've got our
They're
cheese all
coming out.
grated. Ooh, those look great.
Turning off, and they're just getting a rough chop.
Okay.
Like I said, pecans kind of want to fly everywhere. The only way I've kind of find to stop that is to go slow and keep my hand in front, just kind of as a guard. So if they fly off, they're only going to hit my hands.
I will get our tortillas going. I think we might be able to fit two in here.
Oh,
We're
that's
certainly
good
going to
news.
try. And I like to do my quesadillas with a fold over method. I feel like they get ingredients more evenly distributed like that.
The other problem you have when you try to do the two-sided quesadilla is your first flip is always really messy.
Yeah.
Because the bottom layer has your melted cheese, the top layer doesn't, and you flip it and it falls apart. This way, we're letting it get all nice and toasty and melty on the bottom before we even fold it, so both sides are all nice and melty. While those are in, our pan is really low. I'm going to put the cheese on. I put the cheese on my quesadillas as early as possible, just for the same reason we were talking about. I want it to get nice and melty before my tortilla gets crisp. So when I try to flip it, nothing falls out. It's all nice and melty. Flavors can combine together. And then you just have to wait until the tortilla gets to the crispiness level you want. You're not waiting on it for the cheese to melt, hoping the tortilla doesn't burn first. Amount of cheese, totally up to you for a quesadilla. I mean, cheese is in the name, so you got to go a little bit extra. I'm just going to use everything. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Then we're going to go in and sprinkle our toasted pecan over.
And we can move that all together. I really like this recipe because we were trying to do an appetizer theme today. In case you want to have a really nice social appetizer party. This is like really outside of the box, something very different and unique, but screaming awesome fall flavor. And then just with the pear, it's a really yummy non-meat appetizer that you can really enjoy, as well as our butternut squash mushroom.
They'll even sell you a little street taco flour tortillas. Now, it would take a lot more work to make all the quesadillas, but for like an appetizer party like we were talking about, you can have little mini ones. You also can just take these and cut them out. It'll be the same. Yeah, that pear jam looks awesome.
It tastes very good.
Well, while our quesadillas are melting, I'm going to go give a quick eye on our mushrooms there. Probably aren't finished yet, but we just want to make sure.
Okay. Here's our pear jam. I'll show you that. Just gave it a little puree to where it's that consistency, and I really love eating this more with this quesadilla. When we did our sample recipe building for this. The jam was formed and it's just heaven. You could even, if you wanted, put some apple slices inside of your quesadillas, but they honestly were good just with the cheese being the star here.
If your timing works out and you have your jam finished, you can put a little bit of jam inside of your quesadilla. Don't go too crazy. The liquid in it might make it start to get a little soggy. A little bit of a little dots here and there, though, will just melt in with your cheese.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you have a lot of kids hanging out at your party. Just omit the nuts if they're not into that. And you've got quesadillas for the kids too. And I really think they're going to like dipping it in the pear jam as well. Now, even though my quesadilla is not as brown as I want, it's a good time to flip it, because then we can flip it and cook it on both sides to be exactly where we want it, utilizing the middle of the pan in the middle of the burner. But this looks pretty good all that. And again, we just used the butternut squash pan. It already had enough oil in it to where we didn't have to redo it.
And the butternut squash flavor.
Yeah, and you're probably going to get some of the bits of the sage and the
white
other
wine
herbs.
we used to reduce.
Yeah, why not?
Tons of flavor.
Yep. All right, so we'll just let those go just a moment longer. How are the mushrooms looking?
They're
over
good.
there?
As soon as their quesadillas are done, I'm going to go pull them out. They're looking great. Just give them a few more minutes.
Delicious.
With your quesadillas, now that we folded them, they're just as milky as we wanted them to. So if you have kids at your house, if they're really hungry, they're really giving it to you that your lunch isn't ready yet, you can crank the heat up. Once our cheese is melted, all we have to do is get our quesadillas crispy. We're not looking for any certain temperature on the inside. It's all fully cooked.
This is beautiful.
That's what we're looking for.
Still party. I know I already said that.
If some of that cheese starts melting out, you don't even have to worry about it. It makes like a crispy cheese crust on the outside. Best part of it.
Oh yeah. I'd fight for that.
Sometimes I just put extra on the edges and squish it out. All purposeful.
Here we go. There's number one.
Look at that, folks. Let's get a cut on here so we can show you. Quesadilla action. Oh, so cheesy. It's dripping on me. Here we are. Let me go pull our mushrooms out of there so we can have a full meal.
I love non-traditional. That is not something you'd see every day in a quesadilla, and I think it makes it more fun. These to me are the best pieces, where you get that edge and you can pick it up and eat it like a taco. Those are my faves. Oh man. Oh, those look fantastic. So you know, another great thing about these mushrooms is that you can make these the day before, put them in the fridge, and then at your party, throw them in and bake them for 20 minutes right before everybody arrives. So it's a great make-ahead recipe. Same with the pear jam. You could reheat that right in the pan if you wanted to serve it warm or alongside your quesadillas. Toast your nuts ahead of time. Shred your cheese ahead of time to where all you need to do for the quesadillas is just assemble them in the pan and get them grilled off. So there's a lot of things that you could do to speed up your time so that you can do more hosting at your party instead of more cooking at your party. Awesome.
Perfect. Well, we will see you guys tomorrow. You're making some great stuff tomorrow too. We are making a chicken and apple sausage pumpkin soup tomorrow. We are also making
the turkey brie panini.
Turkey apple. You can throw some apples.
Oh,
in
and
there.
a blackberry honey mustard. So we'll look forward to seeing everybody back for day 3 of our fall favorites AARP. And again, another big shout out to our caretakers. This is all about you guys and celebrating what you do for others. We appreciate you, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Thanks, everybody.